Today, I've got the pleasure of speaking with Keaton Bessey. We plan to cover the new legislative changes that are happening in the Residential Tenancy Act, as well as I've got some skill testing questions. Keaton is probably the most professional property manager I've met in all of my years in real estate. He runs Greater Vancouver Tenant and Property Management, and he's allowed me to pick his brain today. Welcome, Keaton.
Yeah, thanks for picking the brain. Thanks for reaching out.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, okay, so let's dive in real quick. Can you, really quickly give us the Coles notes of what the new changes are?
Yeah, so officially there are no new changes yet. So the government's done a good job of putting it all out there, but not actually putting anything into place yet. So they made it pretty clear that they're going to put some things through. And the gist of those things that are going to affect the most people, like the chunkier ones, are going to be the 2 month notice for owner occupancy, or for all the realtors that might be paying attention, 2 month notice for buyers occupancy once the all subjects on a deal are gone or removed. Wow. Once subjects are
Understood.
removed,
Yeah.
then you can issue that 2 month notice. So that is to move to 4 months notice now. And
So
so
it's
what that
doubling.
means is you can no longer, you're not going to wait 2 months anymore. It's now 4 months. It's 4 full calendar months. So if you send it in the middle of the month, that month doesn't count. And so now you're looking at, 4.5 months, which causes a whole ton of problems, financing, the actual deal you put in place, and
It's a domino
a bunch of other
effect,
things. Yeah, it's
potentially.
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You also have to ask permission to be allowed to send the notice, and that permission with the residential tenancy branch will charge a fee. So you have to pay a fee to get permission, then you can send the notice. Compensation is likely changing. The duration for stated use is likely changing. The dispute period is extending, and then some just other like more minor stuff. So
crazy. So my next question was, is this a good or bad thing? But I think you kind
yeah,
of answered that one already. But
for who, right? Like it's
yeah,
I don't think it's a good thing for tenants or landlords. It's obviously going to benefit some tenants just because it's letting them do things, but there's plenty of tenants out there that they kind of laugh at all this stuff, and they're like, I mean, personally it's going to help me, so I'm going to take advantage of this because I now have this right, but it's also, I don't agree with it, but it makes my life easier, so whatever.
yeah, interesting. So, it almost sounds like there's more power to the tenant each time these changes happen.
Yeah, yeah, the legislation is being moved more and more in the tenant's favor, right? So
If you were in charge of the government, hypothetically speaking, is this a direction you would go, or what would you recommend? What do you think is best for everybody in this circumstance regarding these specific changes?
yeah, like unless the government's hiding some information that they know there's going to be mass evictions because the real estate market's going to fall apart and everyone's going to sell their properties, this is pointless.
Yeah.
Like I just don't. We like there are a few bad actors. Honestly, a bigger problem is that because of how much condo construction, as a ratio to how much like purpose-built rental construction there's been over the last 15, 20 years, it's subbed out the responsibility of housing to individual random people that have no real estate background, no knowledge of the Residential Tenancy Act, nothing, to house the general public. And that's what we're basing, the people's ability to earn an income in our tax base on. And that is incredibly irresponsible
Yeah.
versus incentivizing people to actually build purpose-built rentals. Institutions and individual investors and syndications and stuff. Like a 50-unit apartment building is just how you keep the middle class going along and earning an income.
Of
Like people
course.
call real estate a non-productive asset, and I ask them, well, how much money do you make when you're homeless? Not a lot.
Interesting. So do you think, if do you think investors are going to be selling properties because of these changes?
I mean, what we're seeing, we got was 165 units under active management,
It's a lot.
and we've got like 4 clients who are selling. One of them, their tenant just moved out, and now they can actually get $700 more a month for their unit, and they were trying to sell it because they have some equity. They're just like, oh, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm just going to sell it. And now their tenant moved out. Like, okay, let's re-rent it instead. So they were going to sell, and now they're not going to sell anymore.
Actually, a good thing these days when the rents are going up so much. When someone leaves, you now have the opportunity to request market rent.
Yeah, like this tenant moved in like September 2020. So just like the ultimate best time for a tenant to have rented in the last few years.
Yeah.
And so now that rent's going to jump, but we'll find a great tenant with a great income to rent that place for, $700 more a month. But it's just, yeah, like we haven't seen a lot of people actually sell. We're having a lot of conversations, and then people think about it and like, no, we're not going to do it anymore. But there's so much, like even with the new like federal budget, there's more capital gains now. So people are looking at that. It's like the spreadsheet just keeps getting more and more complicated. So people are just like, screw it. Like just going to do nothing and just keep it going.
Let it sit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of what you would call a guru, I guess, someone that's done over 50 transactions, that they're getting so frustrated by all of these new regulations that are giving too much power to the tenant. They're not even focusing on Canada. They're actually like literally, not that I'm saying do this, but they're actually literally focusing on the States. I mean, in America, you can buy as a Canadian, if it's an investment, not for principal residence, 25% down gets you anything you want. Now, I'm not looking to go down this rabbit hole, but that's pretty enticing. If you're someone who's been doing investments in Canada for a long time, you don't need income or even credit to qualify for that. So I wonder how many people will continue down this path. Not a savvy guru, but just like a regular investor who's only got 1 or 2 units. They might be hesitant to buy their next property in the Lower Mainland. Just a thought.
Yeah, I'd say interest rates are getting more in the way of that for sure. But like if there's somebody doing, even owns like 10 doors, they're going to be looking at, bond rates and interest rates and things to make their decision. And that's where you could look at the US or even just a different province like Alberta. But the individual that owns 1 or 2, a lot of them are just trying to make sure there is something separate from their home that their kid can live in 20 years from now, because you can't cut your basement suite out and put it somewhere else, right? It's still there. You don't want to kick them out of the basement. So it's they look at it differently. Like so many people they always say, oh, this doesn't pencil very well, or this doesn't look very good in my spreadsheet that I built. And I was like, yeah, but you just told me you're doing this because you're going for a career move to go move to London. And they're like, wow. I was like, so you have to factor those numbers in. It's not the same thing. It's not just an investment. I'm buying this so I have retirement and make income. It's a different conversation, and we don't actually manage a lot of units that are with those people, right?
Okay. What areas in Greater Vancouver right now have the best cash flow?
So
in your opinion,
I would say asset values they're skewed more when you go more west. So like they get higher as you're getting into Vancouver from the valley, but the rents don't actually change that much.
Yeah.
Like as substantially.
Got it.
And that's how you look at it. So if you look at a Surrey 1-bedroom and then do a comparable downtown Vancouver 1-bedroom and do the asset value and then look at the rents, you're like, well, it rents like the ratio is better in the valley. Just it seems that people have just moved out there, and people actually the rents are still holding, but the properties aren't necessarily going to be as expensive as they would be to try to achieve that same amount of rent. So that's kind of what we're seeing. As far as cash flow, you got to put down like, I don't know, 50-60% when I'm looking at stuff. Just to hit break
it's
even.
That bad now?
It's brutal. Yeah, it's really bad. Even though cap rates are going up. So if you're walking around town buying properties in cash, you're like, okay, this is fine. This is good. Cap rates are up, right? And they suck still, but it's Vancouver. Like cap rates suck in Vancouver because it's Vancouver. Everyone wants to move here, and you're expected it's going to go up. But yeah, cash flow, yeah.
Yeah, I had a meeting with a client earlier today, and we were talking about Maple Ridge, which is quite a hot spot. Your bang for buck goes a long way there. It had some pretty substantial declines when the rates went through the roof. A lot of other areas have bounced back pretty close to the peak. Maple Ridge hasn't bounced back yet, so it's a good spot. He was asking me, what cash flows for 20%, and I had a real tough time holding it in because it's like, oh man, that is long gone. Even
Yeah.
in Maple Ridge, you need a lot down. You need a lot down. I didn't realize Vancouver was 55, you said? 50, 60% down?
Well, it's just, yeah, um whenever we're looking at because we don't do any buying or selling, right? So whenever
Yep,
we're
I get
looking
it.
at something, um like what would you have to put down in cash flow on this thing? Because I'll see a good listing that looks like a good investment property from another realtor I might work with. So we'll put something on their Facebook post or whatever. Oh, it'll
Yeah.
rent for this or whatever. Like, holy hell, it's 50 or
Yeah, yeah.
60% like every time.
I
We
remember
had
it
an
was
owner,
40 before, and I thought that was bad, but I knew it was
yeah,
up there. Yeah.
yeah. We had an owner buy in the city of Logie here. It's like right beside my where I live, and they bought it. They're one of the first buyers in 2016, so 7 years ago when they closed on it in July last year. And we got them $2,500 a month for a 500 square foot, like one bed, so $5 a foot in Burquitlam,
Okay.
basically. Um, the tenant is like 850 credit score, $10,000 a month take home, lives here for a long time, 45-year-old professional, like data science health
Great
manager,
client
something like
or
just
tenant. Yeah.
perfect. Not a peep from her. And they're like, we put 20% down and we're losing money every month.
Yeah.
So they're getting all-time peak. Like we can only rent for about 2,300 in that development today.
Okay.
We have 2,500 all-time peak rents.
And still losing money.
Seven year ago purchase price like 400 grand, and they still don't cash flow.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is what it is, but there's lots of, there's little tricks you can do, I guess. Buying a property, renovate it, then you're going to be able to charge more rent, probably get a little bit better tenant as well. But so,
But
okay,
the value add doesn't really pencil. Honestly, it's like renovate it to keep it in good repair. Don't renovate it try to get more rent because it's not going to work out.
it might not work. Okay, got it. Got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, what would you define as a bad tenant?
Someone who doesn't pay rent or somebody that damages the property beyond the security deposit.
Okay.
I'd say that's the main thing. People often say, "Oh, I have a tenant who's high maintenance," or they complain about everything. Well, if you have a maintenance request system or just a simple process to go through and make up another email address that they can communicate you with, then it's siloed, right? If you're doing it yourself, it's there and you respond to them that way, and they're allowed to be upset, right? Like you don't have restaurants that say, okay, well, this customer comes in all the time. They're high maintenance, but they're still a good customer. They pay, they eat, they leave. They don't cause a big fuss. It's good. Yeah, they're high maintenance. It's okay. Like they
But
are a
they pay the
customer.
bills. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I get
fine.
it.
Yeah.
How about a bad landlord? Because it goes both ways.
Yeah, just somebody who's I mean, there's the ones that really try to scam you. So they'll be like, okay, well, we're only gonna do cash for rent, or we'll accept email money transfers, and then they try to bill you. They're gonna try to bill you late fees for things that they've set up a system to where you're always gonna be late, for example,
Terrible.
or they don't understand just basic health and safety stuff. Like I've had so many like tenants over the years just like reach out through our website or calendar, and they get in my calendar email and they have a decent story. They seem reasonable, so I'll talk to them for 15 minutes or whatever. It's like, my God, like I get it. I've been doing this for a long time. We've seen some horrible properties, run into some really bad stuff, but it just keeps happening. And it's there's a lack of education, there's a lack of financing and planning, which are the two largest things as to what can turn a like a good landlord or a decent person kind of thing into a bad landlord.
Okay.
But there's definitely some people out there that know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose because there is a financial reason to do it. Like
A
if
benefit.
I would never do this, I would never work for somebody or consult for somebody that wants to do this, but it'd be very easy to sit down and map out this is how you screw over all your tenants and this is how you maximize revenue, and just
Yeah.
like go to hell. Like don't, it's housing, you
That's
know.
frustrating. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I had no idea. I didn't know people actually did that kind of thing. Um, okay. Short-term rental ban. Do you got any comments on that?
I think it just shows that we not only need more housing, we just need more buildings for people to use now. Like it's just even more obvious
Mhm.
because you're now going to take away short-term rentals, even though the city of Vancouver already tried to do that for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I haven't paid attention to how long ago that was because they don't really do anything with it. There's still people doing it, and They're not really handing out a lot of fines. I haven't heard anybody like, oh no, I got pegged by the city of Vancouver. Like it's not, it has happened a little bit, but they're still doing it. And now the BC, like the province is going to try to step in here now. Like, how are they going to do any better of a job than the municipality is going to do?
I would assume it'd be harder for them because they have more stuff they're dealing
Yeah,
with.
exactly. It's just not, yeah, like I don't really get it. And the like, because our like short-term rentals, like an Airbnb style thing, or even like 1 to 3 months, happen because we don't have enough places to go. It's not, oh, this is why the housing crisis happened. It's like, well, if we had enough homes to live in, this business wouldn't really be possible, except for the few that actually want to operate it as a service business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we have enough restaurants, so you can go to a steakhouse, you can go grab and go sushi. Like we got everything. There's enough, and restaurants go out of business all the time because there's not enough business for all the restaurants. A housing market can exist the same way. It's just there's too many people here, and we don't build fast enough.
We
That's it.
don't. So you don't actually help any clients with Airbnb, do you?
No, we just do long term, unfurnished, like so 12 months and longer, unfurnished, the bank stock of rental property.
Okay. Um, and right now, what is the current percentage a landlord is legally allowed to increase each year?
It's 3.5% this year.
And what was it? It was lower before, right?
It was 2% last year.
Wow, that's a big
And then
jump.
before that, they stuck it to inflation, which would be 1.5. And then before that was the pandemic, so it was 0. And then before that, it was inflation still. And a couple of years before that, it was inflation plus 2%. And it was inflation plus 2% for a long time. And it was like whatever the Bank of Canada released on this date in their CPI
I didn't know it
announcement. And it was
fluctuated
just
that
that
much.
it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I already know the answer to this, but would you say that's enough to cover keeping up with market rents?
No. So even if I played around with it before just for fun and like
Yeah.
looking at rental rates from 10 years ago, for example, and then like I'm actually like checking in with people that these people know how to, rent properly. I'm checking with colleagues that have portfolios for a much longer time. And yeah, so 10 years ago, we're renting one beds in downtown Vancouver for this amount. Okay. So you take that number and then you start just adding, you hit them with an increase every single year. And you're not even close. Like you're like 30% below market rent, even after still doing all that. But then you're looking at, especially if you have a condo and it's in a strata. So your strata fees are going up. You're paying a property management company to manage your rental, but you're also paying the strata management fees in your strata fees.
Yeah.
You're paying your homeowner's insurance, like your landlord homeowner's insurance, and you're also paying for the strata's insurance within your strata fees. The strata fees go up for whatever other reasons they need to go up for, and they all have been. They're up to like 62 or 65 cents per month per square foot now, when they were 50 just a couple of years ago. And then you have, your own insurance costs, your own deductible buy down. So like there's many buildings in Greater Vancouver where the owners need to buy their homeowners policy, and they need to buy a deductible buy down policy, which is more expensive than the homeowners policy, just because their building has a $250,000 deductible, or a 400. I heard of 400 in Abbotsford. I was thinking buy a
Wow.
condo in Abbotsford for 400. It's a deductible
That's
now.
insane.
So yeah, and then that doesn't include, repair and maintenance. It doesn't include like
Or
capital
vacancy
depreciation.
percentages.
Yeah, and people say, "Oh, there's no vacancy in Vancouver, right? Zero vacancy. It's 0.9 and has been forever." And
You
that's
still miss a
because,
month of rent when you're in
yeah,
between tenants for whatever reason. If that happens, that's a lot.
yeah, that's 8% in 1 year, right?
There you go.
And
Yeah.
it's not in your spreadsheet, right? But yeah.
Yeah. So I get it. The property managers have a tremendous amount of value, especially for people with multiple properties and limited time. So would you recommend everyone use a property manager, or when is it time for a property manager?
You're either too busy or you don't know what to do, or most people are both.
I was just gonna say that sounds like a both
Like
category.
the amount
Yeah.
of people that were like, I don't need a property manager, I know what I'm doing. If I got to interview them for an hour, they would be Swiss cheese by the end of it.
Got it.
Like
Yeah.
what do you mean you know what you're doing? How big of how big of a portfolio do you have? Anybody that's ever like, I'll make a statement in a Facebook landlord group or on Twitter or say something on Instagram or whatever, and somebody gets upset about that. I've been doing this for 30 years, blah, blah, blah. And I always check in. I was like, oh, cool. Like what's your perspective on it? How many tenants have you had? And oh, I've had 3 units for 30 years and probably gone through 9 tenants in that time. I'm like, cool. I used to oversee a portfolio of 5,000 units. We do 100 move outs. Just like one city and
Totally.
like every month. And so in that situation, in the first week of the year, I've already got 10 times the experience this person has. And like that's experience in managing a rental portfolio.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but you get to look at all the data from before. So I got to go in and look at all the financials and all the applications from the portfolios going back. And it's just like, this is so much different than just running a couple doors, right? It's not the same thing.
So if someone's looking, if I'm an investor, what would you recommend I could do as due diligence when looking for a property manager?
Um, you're gonna want to make sure that their fees are very straightforward. So there's a lot of companies that will kind of change their fee model around to cover their backside because there's a lot of just like ongoing expenses that property management companies have, which is why we're also charging an ongoing recurring management fee. We have like professional obligations. We want to make sure that they're held up. And so if they are going to, like, I just had a client the other day. I reached out to follow up on a proposal. They said thanks for the follow up. We'd actually signed with somebody else already. They had a cheaper fee, whatever. I was okay. They called me back 20 minutes later and said we signed with them, and then realized there's this thing in here, so we actually haven't sent them the keys or the deposit yet or whatever, and so we're going to trash that and not work with them. And so this company was they said the rental rate was going to be higher than us as well. So they're giving people a higher rental rate and then saying, we charge you $50 per hour for showings. So they're just putting it up there to get the business. And then they're just sending people and charging for
Yeah.
showings. So like, oh, we're not going to charge you. It's just in the agreement. Like, okay. And they're like, that doesn't sound,
Then what? Then
why
take
would
it
you put
out
that in
of
there?
the agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if we're dealing with an owner who wants to try for higher than we said, and it's reasonable, we say, okay, let's do that. That's okay. But you understand we're coming down here probably within 2 weeks because we're
It's
just
not going to
wasting
rent.
time for
Yeah.
you and us. And like, yeah, okay. And then if they don't move it, then it's like, okay, we'll give you another week and just let you kind of burn up those expenses for another week because it's cheaper for us to market it than it is for them to sit on it vacant. And then after that, we're looking like 45 days, we're going to be terminating them. Like, we're just not going to keep sending our people there. We'll just
It's
say
not
we're
worth it.
stopping showing, like
Yeah.
we're done, right? But to just keep charging people and just like it doesn't make any sense. So things that don't make sense, they got to be straightforward. That's why for our fees, it's all inclusive. It's just done, right? Why would we send an invoice for $25 for cutting keys? We'll just do it. We know if we have to cut keys, it's fine.
Yeah.
They should be making sure that they are licensed.
Okay.
There's going to be there's people operating in Vancouver that I've complained about. So, look, this person isn't licensed, and I'm not ratting them out. It's just like, oh, you have to be licensed for what? It doesn't educate you at all. The license doesn't teach you how to be a property manager, just like a driver's license doesn't teach you how to be a good driver. But the insurance exists.
For sure. Yeah.
So if there's an error or omission, you can go file a claim and hopefully get paid out because this licensee has been not doing a good job or made an honest mistake that was just a very expensive one. But without the license, there's nothing.
Okay.
And they shouldn't be operating. They don't have a trust account or anything. They can't set these things up, so they could be running a really easy Ponzi scheme on your trust account, all that kind of stuff. So you want
How
them to
can
be
you search for
licensed.
license? Like, how can you, is there like a website? I know there is
Yeah,
realtors and brokers.
in BC, it's just still the same thing. BCFSA
Okay.
licensee search, it'll come up. My name will come up. Our other licensed staff will come up. Our brokerage comes up. And if you're looking online and they're not licensed in BC, then they can't operate. And if you want to ask them about that, right?
This is it. Sorry,
Yeah,
go on. Go on.
yeah. So fees should be straightforward. They should be licensed, and they should be able to, like, it's very easy to go online and just say, what questions should I ask a property manager? They're a pretty good list. I know because everybody else that books a call with us, ask the same questions. So we answer them all, the same. But they should be able to answer these questions very straightforward, and they should almost offer up a little bit more than just like telling you the answers. Like they're trying to help you. You should feel not sold to, and you should feel better and more at ease after the conversation. Don't think that, oh, property managers are very busy and who am I to just have one door? These people might be too busy for me, and thank God they just answered my phone call. That is a disaster
Wrong
waiting
way
to
of looking
happen.
at it.
No way.
Yeah. So it's interesting how you said some property managers will, promise a higher rents. As realtors, we have similar challenges where if we're going to a listing presentation, for example, and so realtor will come in and they'll quote a higher sale value, knowing that they're not going to get it. But then you've already done all the work, you've done the marketing, it's online. So then the person comes back and says the realtor, hey, it didn't sell, let's reduce the price, and they reduce it to the actual value and then it sells. It's a really sneaky trick that I see a lot. So I had no idea it was on the property management side as well.
Oh, and it's even easier when because like realtors sell a lot of properties that are occupied by the owner.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, if it doesn't sell, like it's okay, we still live here, right?
Yeah.
Like we haven't bought anything else. We want to sell. It's the spring. Okay, we missed the good time in the market. Oh well. But even that's bad. But it's when you have a vacant property that's sitting there, you're paying expenses on it. If they're not showing it often enough, your insurance could be void if there's a drain backup and all that kind of stuff as well, which people don't think about. And then you've bled them dry for 1.5, 2 months worth of expenses, and like, oh, we got to come down on this, and like, okay, yeah, no, let's just do it, because it takes them a month to go hire another property management company and get the keys off these idiots and everything else.
Yeah.
So you just have them, like, it's so easy to squeeze them out. And like we've terminated probably 2% of the clients that come to us just because they just don't listen. Like I'll have 2 or 3 calls with them before they sign up if they need to. They've got all the template messages and they yep. And then when rubber hits the road, we're like, no, I'm your client. This is how you're going to do it. I'm like, sorry, we terminate them early.
Yeah.
Because we just know it's like, we're doing this in your best interest. Go work with someone else. And hopefully that feedback gets through to them. We're like, shit, I should like, behave a little bit more, because this place is never going to get rented.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What do you charge? Like a lot of property managers have 2 packages. Do you do that?
Yeah, so we've got like 2 sides. Our fees are right on our website. So like very, very simple stuff. There's a nice grid of the 3 options that we have. So there's the management side, and then there's the leasing side. We have 2 options under leasing.
Like placement.
We charge, tenant placement or leasing, or we've heard relocation, but that's a different term altogether. But that's leasing or tenant placement. And so we do something called marketing only, or leasing by owner, or showings by owner, and then we do like the full service leasing. And so showings by owner we offer to people who have basement suites and they live upstairs, or just people who are still living in the property and they want to be involved in the first time they've had a property rented out. And we do everything else end to end, like all the marketing, the professional photos, the screening, the setup of the appointments, the follow-up afterwards, everything all the way through the move-in inspection. But the owners are the ones actually showing the property, and we train them in 15 minutes how to do that. We've rented like 50 homes that way, rented them with 25-year-olds and 65-year-olds, like as the owners doing the showing. So it's pretty easy to teach people how to do it. And they love it because they get to meet people before we actually rent to them, which is great. So those are on the website. And then the management is 10%. But we include the leasing with it. So you get free leasing. Doesn't matter how many times the unit turns over. We re-rent it again for you for free.
Okay. Very good to know. That sounds very fair. I've heard of some pretty crazy prices that some people have asked. So that's amazing. I got to say that was really good. I don't think I've got any. I got a list of questions. I think we've covered everything. I really appreciate your time. I learned a lot, and I'd love to do it again in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the conversation. Reach out anytime, and thanks for recording this and getting it out there.
Yeah, of course. I'd ask how people can reach you, but your background is showing me right now. Well done, my friend.
Google my name. It'll be everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Good to hear from you. Have a nice day.